It's no surprise that BoJack Horseman focuses heavily on relationships. From the humble, zany beginnings of Season 1 to the "oh my god, I didn't know a horse could break my heart so hard" energy of the final seasons, the show presents incredibly consistent examination of friendship, romance, and marriage, all seen through the varying lenses of different members of the main cast. The most in-depth relationship study occurs with the eponymous BoJack Horseman himself, or should I say, eponymous. Eponymous.
Maybe you didn't get it.
Most of BoJack's family sucked, and are also dead. While the show certainly delves into how this has affected him, it also provides a reason for BoJack to rely immensely on his friends and romantic partners for emotional support. This sort of aggressive outward search for validation tends to alienate those closest to BoJack. BoJack desperately desires connection and understanding, but he often fumbles the bag when attempting to receive these things from his friends and relations. He ignores boundaries, actively self-sabotages, and consumes a Herculean amount of drugs. No matter how hard he makes it for them, though, BoJack's romantic partners always challenge him to change and improve his outlook on life to varying degrees of success. From Princess Carolyn to Gina, let's take a look at BoJack's tattered history of romantic relationships. They say you should never shit where you eat, especially if the shit takes 10% every time it gets you a job. Despite this, BoJack's first and longest romantic relationship was with his agent, Princess Carolyn. BoJack tried to keep things casual when they first started fooling around in 2007. Like most men with intimacy issues, BoJack couldn't handle commitment, opting for a series of one-night stands to keep him safely distant from the idea of emotional attachment. Despite being terrified of making their relationship real, BoJack still kept PC around for his own emotional fulfillment. Sex, emotional support, acting gigs, and every other self-centered thing he prioritized over his sort of girlfriend.
We're just two lonely people trying to hate ourselves a little less. Maybe that's all we're ever gonna be. Maybe that's all we ever were.
BoJack often treated PC like a surrogate mother figure, a strong woman who would take care of him unconditionally, but someone he could also have sex with.
You want a mommy you can slide your dick in and out of.
Aside from being able to bang his mommy stand-in, Princess Carolyn also came with none of the mental baggage that BoJack associated with his own mother, Beatrice, who, as you might remember, was one of those not-so-chill moms. The lack of separation between Princess Carolyn's work life and personal life really didn't help with BoJack's delusional behavior either. She was willing to settle for being needed rather than being wanted. She needed BoJack to need her, despite her unwillingness to admit when she needed help herself. Her classic Princess Carolyn pep talk takes on new meaning when BoJack gets her hopes up once again.
So yesterday you let yourself fall in love a little bit and you got your heart broken. Serves you right for having feelings.
These two have had such a long history working together that Princess Carolyn is unable, or at least unwilling, to fully call it quits with BoJack. With all of this going unchecked for so long, BoJack develops an unhealthy reliance on PC to clean up his messes, since that's basically all she's been doing since horsing around. Unfortunately, PC often responds to this dependency by enabling BoJack, like a cool hippie parent that doesn't believe in discipline, man. Turns out, never holding someone responsible for their mess-ups doesn't help them learn to be a good member of society somehow. Despite how much she covers his ass, BoJack doesn't appreciate PC's efforts and certainly isn't willing to make a fraction of the same sacrifices. By attending to BoJack's needs first, Princess Carolyn subconsciously suppresses her own. Textbook codependency. I mean, like, if you agree that it's codependency, then we can call it that. Whatever you want, honestly. I'm fine either way.
Yeah.
PC struggles to value herself over her job. Sure, she'll always land on her feet when facing tough situations. Remember, she is a cat, but she isn't able to thrive in the same way as her I-can-have-it-all arch-nemesis Vanessa Gecko. She's stuck in a hell of her own creation, constantly finding new opportunities for a horseman who isn't capable of moving forward. PC tries her best to keep BoJack grounded by calling out his self-destructive behavior. We see how cruel BoJack can be firsthand when PC recommends they not mess with the script for the BoJack Horseman show.
I'm not about to take career advice from somebody who's been an assistant for the last 14 years.
BoJack obviously also had no interest in wanting to raise a family with PC. We can maybe partially understand why BoJack doesn't want to continue his bloodline, with all the poison swimming around in it, but this is a deal breaker for Princess Carolyn, as having a family is a huge priority for her, stemming from her own chaotic childhood and a deep desire to provide a more stable and supportive home for a child of her own. Due to her mother's tragic alcoholism, PC got used to handling too much responsibility at a very young age. She was also the last of her siblings to set a firm firm boundary with her mother, Cutie, lingering at home and denying herself a future for the sake of her mother's emotional well-being.
Why don't you go live with your dad down in Raleigh?
All my sisters and brothers are gone. If I leave, my mom's got nobody.
Here we see how PC developed those codependent tendencies, enabling her mother's behavior by picking up her slack, allowing Cutie to focus on her main prerogative of getting shit-faced. Cutie even guilt-trips PC through her ambitions to go to college, reframing the idea of her daughter following her dreams as abandonment. She even tries to manipulate PC into staying home through her unplanned pregnancy, and then selfishly blames her for the miscarriage.
Miscarriages don't just happen. This was our ticket. That baby would have changed everything for us.
And Princess Carolyn's relationship with BoJack is 100% in line with this type of treatment. Their overlapping personal and professional lives and the lack of boundaries within prevent PC from standing up for herself. And over time, this treatment warped Princess Carolyn into a relentless workaholic, prioritizing her career over her happiness. She is excessively independent because she doesn't feel like she can rely on anyone close to her. She's willing to tolerate being lonely in a relationship to avoid getting hurt, even though she does crave genuine reciprocal connection, and yet she routinely settles. After she finally breaks things off with BoJack, their friendship and working relationship goes through some major ups and downs. They actually stop working together for nearly 2 years until PC returns to BoJack in need of a major favor, to star in a TV series that she attached him to by forging a signature, which leads to an incredibly positive showcase of how far their relationship and BoJack has come.
I'll do it.
What?
You want me to do it? I'll do it. God knows you've done enough for me.
After BoJack, PC also works her way through a series of increasingly healthier partners. Vincent Adultman is too preoccupied with his job at the business factory to give her the spontaneous adventure she craves. Rutabaga strings her along with empty promises of divorcing his wife, but he also encourages her to start her own agency, which she does. Ralph Stilton is the closest PC gets to a truly loving and caring relationship, but he unfortunately lacks the backbone to renounce his family's anti-cat bigotry. He also encourages her to consider adoption when they have issues conceiving, which PC initially takes as a personal indictment, given her traumatic history. Despite everything, PC chooses to adopt a baby girl as a single mother, struggling immensely to balance her career while creating a maternal bond with her daughter Ruthie. With some unlikely coaching from her arch nemesis Vanessa Gecko, PC does eventually find a way to navigate and truly enjoy the path of motherhood.
You don't have time to waste second-guessing how you feel about it. You just have to do it the best that you can, and know that that's the best you can do.
PC's eventual marriage with Judah actually makes a lot of sense. The only thing he lacks is the flair and wild romantic gesturing of some of PC's previous beaux, though you could argue that this song he sang for her was one of the most romantic things anyone has ever done for her. He is consistent, reliable, and devoted to PC's happiness, which is what she's been craving her whole life. Princess Carolyn doesn't quite feel worthy of this newfound happiness until, ironically, post-rehab BoJack shows up and affirms that she does deserve someone like Judah.
You are producing a show, running a company, catering to your clients, raising a child, a Todd. You need your own Princess Carolyn to take care of you.
BoJack and PC both provided a need for each other during their relationships, but not in a healthy or sustainable way. They fundamentally didn't work because their expectations of one another were unrealistic and imbalanced. Neither could be what the other wanted from them, but fortunately, they're able to forge a more meaningful friendship beyond their romantic relationship. When BoJack's memoir One Trick Pony becomes a massive hit, he runs into that all too relatable problem where everybody he dates only wants to bang him for his shocking comeback story. If I had a nickel. With his favorite bar overrun with rabid fans, BoJack does what every man would when they want to be completely alone. Drives to a roller rink in the valley. This is where BoJack meets Wanda Pierce, an MBN programming executive who just woke up from a 30-year coma.
Everything feels fresh if you just forget the last 30 years ever happened.
In spite of, or perhaps entirely due to her peculiar situation, Wanda has the carefree personality of a 20-something. She's flexible and able to adapt to new situations, probably because every situation she's encountered post-coma has been shockingly new to her. Wanda has no idea who BoJack is, which is the hottest thing imaginable to BoJack at this exact time. She represents a chance for him to relive the happiest time of his life in the mid-80s, before his rise to stardom on Horsing Around. It's possible BoJack subconsciously sees Wanda as a substitute for Charlotte Moore, who BoJack secretly crushed on before he became a huge star. Early in his relationship with Wanda, BoJack can't help but revert to toxic BoJack behaviors, but Wanda's positive and fun-loving perspective brings him back to earth. The two chat all night, truly enjoying each other's company before sleeping together. To BoJack's amazement, and perhaps the viewers as well, he still wants to hang out with her afterwards.
do things with you, fully clothed, sober, in daylight hours.
After all, who wouldn't want a chance to relive their 20s and be less of a piece of shit this time around? With Wanda, BoJack can revisit a time when he felt he was at his happiest. Unfortunately, this makes BoJack even more controlling, wanting to curate the specific experiences to keep the relationship firmly planted in a time capsule. Hence the quirky 50s diner date. When Wanda connects with Alex, a man who coincidentally also just got out of a 30-year coma, BoJack gets jealous and exposes Alex as a KGB agent. This backfires and shakes Wanda's faith in him.
I want to know what happened to the amazing guy I spent the last few days with, because if this is who you are, I don't think I like it.
BoJack wrestles with his feelings for Wanda because he's terrified of rejection. Appropriately, Princess Carolyn is the one who calls him out on his self-sabotaging, as she's had a front-row experience to this type of behavior from BoJack time and time again.
Look, you obviously really care about this girl, and that scares you, so you sabotage yourself.
To try and win her back, BoJack seeks out Wanda at Todd's awful Disneyland to set the record straight.
I'm not perfect. I'm cynical, and I'm possessive, and I can sometimes fly off the handle. I'm not always the best at being not terrible.
Deep down, BoJack knows Wanda can and will be good for him and doesn't want to mess things up like he always does. And yet, he still attempts these grand gestures he's learned from TV, asking her to move in with him while the entire world is literally burning down around them. Wanda's major theme is about ignoring red flags. Due to her naivete, having missed out on 30 years of her life, she wants to believe in BoJack and hope for the best. This is why she very foolishly moves in with BoJack after only a few days. BoJack is subconsciously love-bombing Wanda, lavishing her with praise and attention, wanting to spend as much time with her as possible, believing that she and only she can help him change for the better. While some of this sounds appealing, especially if you're a fan of 500 Days of Summer, there's a danger in such a whirlwind romance. BoJack's intentions may be genuine, but he is almost certainly trying to pack his entire new relationship into a 22-minute script where everything works out in the end. This is not dissimilar to how BoJack first connected with Todd. He allowed Todd to stay because his father Butterscotch had just died, and he didn't want to be alone. Todd was in the right place at the right time, and he ended up living there for years, despite BoJack's constant belittlement. Things start off decently for BoJack and Wanda, but 2 weeks later, Wanda accidentally instigates a fight between Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter. On the drive home, BoJack tries to reassure her that she did nothing wrong.
Look, what happened back there is not your fault. That's just what happens when two people live together.
That's a weird thing to say to your girlfriend who just moved in with you.
It sure is, Wanda. BoJack's comment is very telling of how he handles conflict. He basically tells his girlfriend that he's comfortable fleeing misunderstandings rather than tackling the underlying issues head on, which is certainly not the most comforting thing to hear from a partner. Wanda diffuses BoJack's paranoia with an extended metaphor about mulch, which doesn't make a lot of sense to BoJack. And while BoJack struggles to understand the joke, he hits a jogger with his car. Wanda reasonably insists that they take the jogger to the hospital, while BoJack wants to do a hit and run. A real odd couple situation, isn't it? But it makes a lot of sense given what we just said about BoJack fleeing misunderstandings while Wanda attempts to fix them. These differing perspectives also reflect how both characters see the world. BoJack remains largely insulated from consequences. Wanda, however, has enough integrity to not leave someone to die in the street, even when nobody's watching. Luckily for the jogger, BoJack agrees to pay off his bills and get him to the hospital, largely due to Wanda's influence. At the hospital, Wanda then tells BoJack another story, one that results in the missing punchline from the mulch joke earlier.
Wow, that is actually a really good joke.
I told you, some things take time.
And then, BoJack drops the weirdest L-bomb in the history of weird L-bombs.
Okay, love you. No, I don't.
This could be written off as an awkwardly cute interaction, but not for BoJack. He's got this mental fixation with keeping score with Wanda in their relationship, and he sees this accidental admission as losing the lead. BoJack goes through an absurd amount of mental gymnastics to avoid defining his relationship with Wanda after this, which is only made worse when Wanda settles the argument.
You don't love me. That's okay. I don't love you.
This confuses BoJack because he's not emotionally mature enough to own his feelings. Admitting that he cares for Wanda is internalized as weakness, and a road to eventual pain if he becomes invested. He retains a lot of the anxiety from his upbringing around letting his walls down, despite his partners showing that their intentions are genuine. Naturally, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. BoJack would literally rather autoerotic asphyxiate himself than have a slightly weird conversation with his partner.
You need to be responsible for yourself.
That doesn't sound like me.
I know, but if you love me too, you won't do it.
Like a play straight out of the Narcissist's Guide to Totally Blowing Up Your Relationship, BoJack starts to devalue Wanda with snide remarks.
Usually I talk to Diane on the way to work, but she abandoned me to teach piano in Cordovia or something.
Oh, well,
Glad you settled for me because Diane wasn't available.
This same type of carelessness is screwing over BoJack's dream role, Secretariat. He gets Kelsey fired for ignoring a studio mandate and then pisses off the new director by trashing the film's quality, which prevents him from being able to perform a play in New York. Instead of taking any ownership of these mistakes, he unfairly projects them onto Wanda.
You didn't want me to go to New York in the first place. And now, lucky me, I get to stay here and work on this terrible movie that's gonna ruin my career.
Wanda is no pushover, though. She recognizes BoJack and Diane's toxic attachment is bringing out the worst in one another and pleads with BoJack to send Diane home.
Did you go to work today?
I was gonna, but then I remembered that everything is garbage, so why bother doing anything?
True story.
At her breaking point, Wanda attempts to redirect this energy into a couple's getaway to Santa Barbara. Unfortunately, this effort isn't enough to salvage the relationship. BoJack finds a reason to blame Wanda for the breakup, despite her obvious attempts to help. Instead of reflecting inward, BoJack does a BoJack and lashes out, belittling her career. He can't help but victimize himself and attack everyone around him when he's floundering. And BoJack and Wanda's relationship ends. Wanda's biggest strength is also her biggest weakness. Her determination to find the positive in everything prevents her from seeing the obvious negative. One of the most quotable quotes from the entire series comes from Wanda reaching this epiphany.
You know, it's funny. When you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags.
Wanda concedes that she's been approaching their relationship by willfully ignoring BoJack's negative behavior. She's not toxically positive, but she definitely prefers to not dwell on things, choosing instead to address them and move on. BoJack does the exact opposite. He exists in a world of cynicism, pettiness, and consequence avoidance. He has trouble seeing how fleeting short-term personal gains can be, especially when they jeopardize important, longer-lasting things like his relationships. One professional success won't give him lifelong happiness, but he really thinks that it will. While Wanda is a bit emotionally stunted due to her coma, she's proactive and can rapidly adapt. BoJack, on the other hand, is reactive, refusing to leave his comfort zone unless forced. Kelsey Jennings points this out in a conversation with Diane.
He got famous in his 20s, so he's going to be in his 20s forever. After you get famous, you stop growing because you don't have to.
While both Wanda and BoJack were stunted into a 20-something's mindset, one of them was moving forward while the other was moving backwards. Wanda wanted to believe that BoJack would overcome his hang-ups, which is why she was so devastated when it was the pizza man at the door and not BoJack. But as we've seen over and over, BoJack is not yet emotionally prepared to believe that he can change for the better. He's not yet willing to put in the work to make tangible lifestyle changes, believing his mother's final lucid statement as gospel. As a result, BoJack leaves Wanda behind, trudging forward in what's to come. After ruining things with Wanda, BoJack once again takes a big shit where he eats and starts dating his Secretariat publicist Anna Spanakopita. Their time together is far less complicated and much more transactional. Anna is authoritative, results-oriented, and considered to be the Oscar whisperer of Hollywood.
My clients have won Oscars 9 out of the last 10 years.
There's a reason she's gotten to the top of the entertainment food chain, and that reason is she has no problem being kind of a monster. She controls BoJack by repeating the same lies he's been telling himself for decades to create a false narrative in his head that will keep his behavior in line.
Stop punishing yourself.
I'm not in the movie. I was in New Mexico.
None of that matters. All that matters now is the story. And we get to decide what our story is.
BoJack is naturally attracted to Anna because she sets clear and obvious expectations, most of them benefiting his public image, all the while demanding very little from him in return. As far as BoJack is concerned, this all-ego, no self-reflection approach is a goddamn goldmine. Anna routinely puts on a facade to get what she wants out of BoJack. In some ways, she can anticipate his needs and deliver results, but it's usually done as a form of professional damage control rather than actual concern for his well-being. For example, when BoJack drunkenly reveals several pieces of sensitive information to a journalist with whom he was making sex, he immediately calls Diane for help. However, Anna had already taken care of everything. It's very clear that Anna's biggest priority is her career. She will do whatever it takes to sit comfortably at the top of the Hollywood pecking order. She's extremely competent, yet frighteningly ruthless and controlling. Eventually, BoJack tries to fire her for working with other A-listers, demanding her full attention.
I dropped all my other clients. You're the underdog. I want to put all my attention on you and get you that Oscar.
Though this may sound grandiose to those unfamiliar with sociopaths, this is just another form of manipulation. During one of the less comfortable scenes in the show, Anna assaults BoJack. She takes advantage of BoJack's desire for companionship and weaponizes it to keep him in line. There's never a moment of genuine intimacy between the two.
You control every part of my life, and I don't know anything about you.
BoJack's upbringing definitely gave him a bit of an authority weakness. He's stubborn, but he'll do what he's told when he feels a project or relationship is in jeopardy.
Sorry, but real horses don't just do whatever someone says.
And that's why you need to go to this festival.
If you say so.
Anna has no close family members or friends that we're aware of. She's divorced and is not allowed to see her son, probably for very chill and good reasons. These facts, particularly the latter, are definite red flags BoJack should have picked up on, but he ignores them, desperate for connection. BoJack's paranoia, naturally, leads him to end up spying on her, shattering her mysterious yet polished public facade.
She warned you that you wouldn't want to know her.
Yeah, she was right. It's so sad that when you see someone as they really are, it ruins them.
This revelation actually shows a surprising amount of growth for BoJack. It mirrors the warning BoJack gave Wanda about his own behavior in Yesterdayland. This time, the whole relationship is conducted on Anna's terms, even if it means placating BoJack with emotionless sex to move forward. BoJack attempts to remedy this very normally by confronting Anna in her home late at night.
You are a beautiful, sexy, fascinating, terrifying woman, and I want to know you. I'm not afraid of that. And you don't have to be either.
Anna chooses a lonely lifestyle to create a barrier between her ambition and anything that could get in the way. She's a lot like BoJack in this way, terrified of being vulnerable and letting others in. She later describes how a near-death experience as a lifeguard changed her worldview.
Because there are some people you can't save. Because those people will thrash and struggle and try to take you down with them.
Anna is deliberate with her language when dealing with BoJack, saying whatever he needs to hear to stay in control. She disses Bradley Hitler Smith, citing BoJack's newfound stardom is why he won't be a part of Ethan around. And BoJack is too cowardly to be honest with Bradley, letting Anna do his dirty work. Sometimes Anna's blatant appeals to BoJack's ego are very obvious.
Well, a part like that would really underline that BoJack's more than just an actor. He's a movie star. This jelly bean thing could show the world that BoJack's more than just a movie star. He's an actor.
Like your average grifter, Anna doesn't actually believe anything she's saying here. She knows that his performance in Secretariat is really just a CGI double. It's about optics and furthering her own career. For contrast, Princess Carolyn is always honest about how much she believes in BoJack as an actor, but is also realistic about when he's blowing it. Though his career revival is gaining steam, BoJack is still unable to completely disassociate himself from being the horse from that one show. And he certainly doesn't have a reputation around Hollywood of being a super reliable or professional guy. Anna prefers to keep BoJack's head in the clouds, whereas Princess Carolyn knows what to expect from him, and that she'll probably have to be the one to deal with the consequences when things go south. In a power play, Anna challenges PC to a game of let's get BoJack 2 rolls before New Year's Eve. She exploits Princess Carolyn's determination and challenge-driven nature, and BoJack's stubbornness, ending with PC losing both roles for BoJack. Because of this, BoJack fires PC, citing a lack of professional integrity. This is a frustrating sentiment, because if there's any extremely unprofessional relationship happening here, it's probably the one where the client and publicist are caught up in a loveless, manipulative, sex-riddled trash fire that's solely based on getting a shiny trophy. BoJack doesn't realize this, obviously, selling out his long-standing friendship with PC for something far less permanent and valuable. And of course, Anna drops BoJack the moment they find out his nomination wasn't real. She immediately moves on, refusing to let BoJack's thrashing take her underwater. On to the next. Anna is not a good person. One could even go so far as to say a bad person. She's cold, vicious, and manipulative, but it might not be due to a complete lack of empathy. It's a harmful form of self-protection she's committed herself to when faced with self-destructive people. There is a point where it is healthy to emotionally distance yourself from others who won't help themselves, but Anna took it to an extreme and remains fiercely independent because of it. After a couple of years of single life, BoJack begins dating Gina Cazador, his co-star on Filbert, who has a history of on-set romances that end abruptly at wrap.
I'm not dating anyone. Guys in this town, especially celebrities, are not exactly the settle down type.
This way, she's able to keep at arm's length from BoJack without letting any of that pesky love stuff complicate things. Despite this, they actually seem to complement each other fairly well, being all cute and shit on their dates. In the beginning, Gina loves being alone and refuses to stay overnight at BoJack's place. Probably a wise decision given his track record. She, like BoJack, is not a huge fan of vulnerability. Her aloofness is a defense mechanism. Career-wise, Gina is pretty disillusioned with acting, with any hopes for a big break diminishing the longer she does it.
Do I love Internal Affairs Director Sassy Malone, whose primary character traits are that she hates bras and loves cold rooms.
Not especially. It feels gratuitous and male-gazy.
This is in stark contrast to BoJack, who loves the attention he's gotten making a comeback in Hollywood, though he's not a huge fan of Filbert's scripts. Offset, BoJack and Gina actually bond over their acting insecurities. BoJack's biggest fear is that he'll always be just a washed-up sitcom actor, and his early struggles on Filbert's set weren't convincing anyone otherwise.
Filbert takes one more drag of his cigarette, then kneels down to inspect the corpse.
Cut!
On the other hand, Gina has been acting consistently for decades, but always within the lines of predictable Hollywood formulas. Her whole gig on Filbert is to be the younger, sexier love interest and partner of BoJack's titular character. This is standard fare for her career, always the sassy, sexy sidekick, never the lead. Gina is only 39 years old, but her career represents that rampant ageism problem for actresses in Hollywood. Gina thinks her only real hope is to pivot into becoming an esteemed character actress later in life, like the homie Margot Martindale. Filbert creator Flip McVicker is fine with objectifying Gina because, hey, sex sells. She's forced to do nude scenes because refusal could get her blacklisted. Oh, don't hire this woman, she stands up for herself too much. Get someone with less self-respect.
Chicks always make such a big deal about their bodies. Maybe now that you've done it, Gina won't complain so much the next time we make her do it.
Gina just continues to put up with a lot of this bullshit to keep food on the table. However, BoJack actually gets Gina out of her nude scene by doing it himself, which leads to Gina opening up to him a little bit more, revealing that her childhood acting dream was musical theater.
I still listen to that musical because it reminds me of a time when I was less jaded, when I believed I could do anything, and that makes me feel good.
At this point, BoJack is genuinely working on himself, cutting down on the booze and performing thoughtful gestures for Gina, but he still has that reckless BoJack impulsivity. He wants to support her dreams, but fails to run the idea by her before arranging a singing audition with Flip and Princess Carolyn. Naturally, the prospect of this vulnerability horrifies Gina. Gina struggles to accept BoJack's attempts at positive reinforcement, feeling she's destined to be a sassy, sexy sidekick for the remainder of her castable days.
What if you are the star?
I'm not.
But what if you are? If you don't try, you'll never know, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have made it or not.
The audition goes poorly, and Gina leaves in shame, later writing off BoJack's further attempts to reassure her. She sees it as less of a wake-up call and more of a reality check, retreating further into her comfort zone. Things gradually get better between them, until BoJack accidentally gets injured during a stunt gone wrong. BoJack is prescribed opiates to deal with the pain. A big yikes for this horse and his addiction problems. Maybe too predictably, BoJack builds up a tolerance to the pills and begins consuming more and more, eventually losing any track of reality. While desperately trying to find more painkillers, BoJack breaks into Gina's house with Hollyhock. To distract her, BoJack unintentionally gives Gina hope that their relationship has longevity outside of the show. And against her typical instincts, Gina lets her guard down with BoJack. He plays along to avoid being found out, but because of his withdrawal symptoms, BoJack doesn't actually absorb what she's saying to him.
Is it possible that we're the ones we've been waiting for?
Yes, I totally think that is possible, which is why I can't wait to talk about this tomorrow.
BoJack confesses to Hollyhock that he originally planned on ghosting Gina, but he wants to try to make something work that won't permanently ruin their relationship, which, yeah. After dropping Hollyhock at the airport, BoJack does some hardcore addict shit and crashes his car so that he can get prescribed more opiates. He stashes them around the house and lies to Gina about his consumption level. Rough start, my guy. Before heading to a premiere party, Gina learns that she's been highlighted in the news for her work on Filbert, and she is understandably stoked.
Wow, I've never been mentioned in a review before. Her restrained performance crackles with nuance and power.
Despite his secret pill addiction, BoJack and Gina's relationship is going pretty well. He thoughtfully gets her earrings for the premiere, though he also hesitates when she wants to be seen as a public couple, and yet he enthusiastically hypes up Gina's performance to the press.
FYI, you're gonna want pictures of her after you see what she does in Filbert. Let me tell you something, that 39-year-old actress is going places.
After the premiere, Gina starts receiving tons of attention from the press, potentially giving her career the boost she didn't think was possible. After BoJack storms out of an argument with Diane, high on pills, he kisses Gina in front of reporters and outs them as a couple publicly. This is a great step for their relationship, but BoJack does it for all the wrong reasons. At this point, Filbert had given Gina everything she wanted, but hadn't dared to dream of. She kept her relationships at arm's length in previous shows, she kept her expectations for her career in check, and now she finally lets her guard down. And she has a successful, blossoming career and a caring boyfriend. Of course, this doesn't last as BoJack's addiction gets worse and he begins lashing out at Gina. Through his substance abuse, he can no longer differentiate between reality and the scripted world of Filbert. He becomes convinced that someone is trying to sabotage the show, leading him on a wild goose chase around LA to find the culprit. Gina eventually confronts him about the pills he's been hiding and tries to convince him to get help as to not completely ruin Filbert.
I'm not kidding. The pills. Now!
You're out of control.
Give them to me!
In the most uncomfortable scene in the entire show, BoJack strangles Gina on set long after the director has called cut, still unable to tell reality from fiction. BoJack has to be pulled off of Gina by the rest of the crew.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
After the choking incident, BoJack sobers up and sees the footage for himself. Knowing he's destroyed their relationship irreparably, he wants to hold himself accountable to the public. As painful as it is for her, Gina begs BoJack not to tell the truth during the interview. She's finally gotten the career she's always wanted. Even after everything he did, Gina isn't willing to lose it all just to be seen as another victim in the eyes of the public. She's willing to bury her disappointment and trauma internally to not lose what she's worked so hard to achieve.
People know me because of my acting, and all that goes away if I'm just the girl who got choked by BoJack Horseman.
This is, unfortunately, a real issue that's prevalent in Hollywood. This information getting out could reduce her to another footnote, another woman abused by a powerful man. After this, BoJack finally admits he needs help. Diane takes him to rehab, and Gina soldiers on, keeping her head down like always, focusing on her career and her career alone. Sadly, her trauma drastically affects her ability to work comfortably on set, and she's even unfairly seen as a difficult actress. During a choreographed scene, she's triggered by memories of the assault. Gina clearly needs help, but she deflects any questions about her behavior as hating surprises. How Gina feels is not her fault, but her reactions to these minor changes on set do still have consequences. Without the full context of what she's been through, the film's director sees her as a diva, and this perception hinders Gina's consideration for future roles.
I can't risk any drama on set. There's too much riding on this for me.
If I'm being honest, I can't recommend her.
No?
Especially if you have a lot of stunts.
The sad truth is that BoJack and Gina did have quality chemistry and a mostly caring relationship. Out of all of BoJack's relationships in the show, it's the one that I think had the best opportunity to actually work. But of course, BoJack's addictions finally caught up with him. And though it was his wake-up call to get clean, he'll never be able to take back the harm he caused to somebody he cared about. Looking back, all of BoJack's major past relationships have one thing in common. They all involve intelligent and capable women with the emotional resolve to keep going, even when things get difficult. But they also represent parts of his personality he had to work on to get to this point in his life. His relationship with Princess Carolyn represents his self-destructive tendencies. By avoiding being responsible for himself, he stagnates emotionally and redirects his attention to unhealthy self-soothing methods. Wanda represents his optimism, his relentless pursuit of wanting to change for the better, despite not being very good at it. All of the work he's done to fight past his deep-seated internalized negativity. Anna is his ambition. He craves attention from the public, but has done some terrible, unforgivable things in his pursuits for this attention. BoJack has had to learn the importance of valuing people over his career ambitions. Gina represents BoJack's issues with self-worth. He constantly grapples with his self-esteem and worries about his capabilities as a performer. He used to rely on external forces for validation, but with patience and persistence, he's able to eventually venture out of his comfort zone and accept help, learning to love himself, warts and all. Before rehab, BoJack's romantic interests were a way for him to avoid working on himself. He made connections with a variety of women, but ran away when challenged to grow. By the end of the series, BoJack finally realizes that he alone is responsible for his own happiness. Every day will be another opportunity for BoJack to learn to be comfortable with himself independently. He's still BoJack Horseman. There's no cure for that, but he is capable of change, and he can continue working on himself every day. And every day, it will get a little easier. And one day, he can become the type of horse person that his loved ones truly deserve.
Johnny Two Cellos. I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.